Welcome to the Drive Able podcast, where we discuss all things about driving and safer community transport for people with disabilities and medical conditions. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you go back to listen to episode 8. In that episode, we met Eli and discussed his driving history, how having the wrong attitude on the road can lead to long-term life-changing injuries. We also discussed how he is using his life story with his education series that he's doing for SA schools. And then in episode 9, we unpacked this in more detail and talked about the modifications he's using to drive. Eli is an amazing guy, and if you want to know why safety on the road matters, make sure you go back and listen to this story. Ali?
G'day everyone, this is episode 10 and I'm very excited. This is another interview podcast again, and in this episode we're going to be interviewing a special guest, Matt Caruana. I personally met Matt and actually worked out with him at a gym. He's a pretty intensive and strong guy. He's got a very interesting story about that as well. Basically getting a second chance and really using that second chance to its full potential. Matt seems to be unstoppable and is breaking barriers, and he's challenging his diagnosis every step of the way. It's really wonderful to watch him. He's got an awesome social media profile which we'll share at the end, and I can't wait to hear more about his story and also talk about his driving journey. So, Brad, are you ready for it?
Yeah, mate, let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Driving is something many take for granted. But when someone has an altered ability, then driving or getting out and about in your own car can be challenging. The Drive Able podcast unpacks the world of driving with a disability so you can experience the freedom that you desire. I'm Brad, and with me is Ali, and together we have over 30 years of experience in driving and disability. Enough with the intros, let's get into it.
Okay, in this episode we are talking with Matt. Thank you for joining us, Matt. Let's kick off and introduce yourself by telling us a bit about your disability and what it actually is.
Yep, so my name is Matt Caruana. I have a spinal cord injury, quote unquote complete T12. And I also had a traumatic brain injury, but I don't think that even affects me anymore.
Okay, and what was the story, I guess, before? Who were you before the accident, and what happened, and how did you end up with that disability?
Who I was in a way, it was like there was two versions of me. There's the version who everyone else saw, and the version who was inside. I was a big gym goer. I was heavily insecure, deeply depressed, very anxious, and suicidal, which actually led to my injury. I threw myself off a building at 16 years old to end my life. But 2 weeks later, I wake up in hospital where I didn't.
All right, there's so much to unpack there, mate. So, what was that like when you first woke up? Did you know what was going on?
No, and actually, I mean, initially I thought it was like the afterlife.
Right.
Like I actually had thoughts, and I remember thinking that, but obviously it kicked in quickly that no, this is real life, and I couldn't feel half my body, couldn't move half my body. Arms had freaking the arms like slings and stuff, had casts on both arms, had boots on both legs, neck brace, like feeding tube, all this stuff. And it's like thinking, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah.
Thinking, what is going on? I'm really over it. And yeah.
And did you know how you'd got there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you knew the memory of what had happened. Yeah.
Mm.
Must have been fairly confronting.
Well, see it like this. I before my injury, I felt worthless. I labeled myself as worthless. That's why I did what I did. I was deeply depressed, heavily insecure, anxious, all that stuff. And then afterwards, knowing that the one thing I wanted in life I couldn't do right, how pathetic was I now? Was a question I kept asking myself. It just ate me up inside about, and I hated myself, to say the least.
Even afterwards?
Even more so.
Oh, yeah.
If I couldn't do that right, and now I'm in a position worse off than what I was beforehand, and still stuck with the same mindset, but now thinking even darker thoughts, man, I thought I was at rock bottom.
So then I guess what started working your way out of that?
I had many turning points, many turning points. I'm very blessed. And I just happened to have the right people in my life at the time sort of nudge me in the right direction that I suppose ultimately, like, through all the turning points, I won't go into all of them, they led me to find my purpose and meaning in my life. My mission is to instruct, inspire, influence, and impact people's frame of mind for them to improve their lives. And that's what fulfills me to this day. And because I have that, I now have purpose. And so the whole label of being worthless is fucking irrelevant now. It's now all about the value I can give to others and the inspiration that I am. Not just through my story, but the wisdom I've attained and how I can pass that on to other people, running workshops, coaching people one-on-one. There's all these different methods I can go about it.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into that. Where is life up to now? What do you do with yourself? Introduce yourself, the new you. What do you do nowadays?
Yeah, so literally that. I empower people's mindsets to have a greater quality of life. And so like the way I got started by that was by sharing my story. People found value out of it, but I wanted to do more than that. So I started creating workshops, mostly in high schools. Like I am 21 years old, right? So I'm like their older brother. They get me, they connected with me quite well.
Mm-hmm.
Then I developed into the corporate world. I started mentoring people one-on-one, coaching them, all based on mindset. And they're my main ways of going about it. Anything to do with mindset, because I firmly believe change your mind, change your life. It's been like that for me, literally. While everything external stays the same, our internal, I literally, yeah, I could talk about this stuff for days, but yes.
I want to keep asking you. I want to learn all about it, but I should probably sign up to one of your courses and learn about it the proper way. I just want to know. I want to know about that journey when you woke up in more detail in regards to how you've actually got to where you are now. I mean, that it must have been such a struggle when you can't move and you've got the mindset that you had that you're a failure. And I mean, you've spoken about there was multiple turning points. Is there a thing that happened in hospital that you could put your finger on, or was it later than that? Did it happen early on, or did it happen further down the track?
Yeah, so just to give some context, before my injury, I never spoke about my feelings. Mm-hmm. Barely ever would I ever. And for over a year before I had actually jumped, I hadn't told a soul about how I was thinking or feeling. Kept that all to myself. After my injury, nothing had changed. I hated talking about how I felt. Mm-hmm. I was under 24-hour watch. I was seeing psychologists twice a day. It drove me nuts. It really ate me up inside. But then I remember it was a week before I left hospital. At this stage, 24-hour watch had sort of died down, and it's just me and my mum. I was allowed out of the hospital with my mum. We went to Penrith.
How long was this? How long was this after? Just out of curiosity.
This was now, about 3.5 months after my injury.
Yep.
So. Okay. A week before I left hospital, and I was with my mum. I wanted to get 2 piercings on my eyebrow, these 2 dermals. Got them done, and I've got to say, I was actually happy, really happy. I loved piercings at the time, and got them done. Like, I was actually happy. And the train ride back to the hospital, just halfway through the trip, I never met this guy in my life, and he comes on the train. Before he even sits down, looks to his right. It's like, Jesus Christ, what did you do to yourself? And I swear to you, now I have not told a soul, but I didn't like talking. I haven't told anyone, but for some reason it just came out. The first person I ever told was this guy. I said, I attempted suicide. He looks at me and he was like, well, that's pretty fucking stupid. Look at you, Jesus. He starts laughing at me too. And I didn't know how to take it. But the next morning I woke up with a sense of lightness.
Yeah, right.
And I hadn't felt that in as long as I can remember. And for the first time, I went and saw my social worker without her having to chase me up. I shared what had happened, how the guy on the train made me feel. And yeah, I suppose she then said, Matt, well, look, what if you open up to people close to you in life? Could you potentially strengthen the relationship you already have with them? Because you said you've already been lying to people now for what? Like 3-4 months you've been in hospital, telling people you had an accident, that you had a fall. You spoke the truth, you feel lighter. What could it do for the other relationships if you were real? And that really stuck with me and challenged my way of thinking so hard. But I mean, she had a point where they got on the train. So I started with my girlfriend at the time, then my friends. And for the first time in my life, I was real with my parents. And it was amazing how she was right. And that was the first key step, was to have a supportive network. I needed to have people around me that, appreciated me and valued me as much as I valued them.
Mm. I could
Definitely
listen to that. I could listen to that
theme.
for ages. I need to sign up and listen to you more and pay for your story, I reckon. But thank you. Thanks for going into it. I mean, um, we need to talk about driving. That's the
Yeah.
main thing that we're on here for.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I think this is a driving podcast. So we should probably talk about that. So but the first question I've got for you is, mate, so tell us about your injuries now. You're in the wheelchair now?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all we can see is your head on the screen here. So
Oh, true. Yeah.
just for the people that are listening in as well, how do you get around? What function do you have? And yeah, what's daily life like for you from a functional point of view?
I would say I'm very high functioning. I would say completely independent as well. I have a manual chair. I drive myself too with push pull hand controls. The most sort of basic ones you can really get. I also have function in my legs now. That's why I did quote unquote like beforehand. I have they called it a complete injury, and they showed me that spinal cord literally in two after the MRI. And I can get on a bike in the gym and pedal away. And I'm doing that consistently to improve my rehab, improve my recovery, and it's progressing continuously. And so, anyways, that's a whole other tangent I can go on. But
Does it
it was
hurt? Does it? I wonder. Does it hurt when you do that?
It actually gets it does fatigue, and I can feel it like set in. It's like ooh, but and I get DOMS every now and then as well.
Yeah,
which is really cool.
Yeah, wow, it's interesting.
So are you using that to help with transfers, or how do you do your transfers?
Transfers all upper body.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I am conscious of my legs though when I am transferring, like applying like weight through them, especially with floor transfers. They tend to be using my legs. It makes it so much easier.
Yeah.
God. Yeah.
So getting in and out of a car, then let's talk about the driving. Is it just all upper body slide transfer?
So I don't know what they call it, the bar on top of the window. Some people call it a Jesus bar.
Depends how you drive. Yeah, it's just a little grab bar. Yep.
Yeah. I hold onto that, hand on my cushion, and I transfer away. Because my car's a little bit raised, I've got to hold on Rodeo.
Okay.
So it's slightly higher than my chair. So I hand on like seat, I can do it. It's just easier like that. Yep. But I apply all my force through my hand that I'm pushing off my chair with, because if I put more force on the one like holding up on that bar, it's going to really hurt my shoulder.
Yep. Yeah, you got to be careful of that rotator cuff, as you're going in and out. You don't want a rotator cuff injury. That's the OT coming out in me. Everybody listening into this, if you're using all of your upper body, that rotator cuff, you've got to protect that rotator cuff for the long term. Yes, you're going to use it every day, but just as an OT, if you tear that rotator cuff, then you're in all kinds of trouble.
Yeah.
So what were you driving before? Like when you said this happened at 16, so had you started any kind of learning or anything at that time, or had you done any driving?
Yes. So I got my L's on my birthday. I turned 16. And so I got around about 60 hours in those 3 months of driving my parents. I never really liked driving, if I'm honest.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah.
So what made you, I guess, at which part of the journey did you say, or did anyone say, like, when did the discussion of I need to get back into a car come up in this since you were 16, like on the post rehab side of things?
Good question.
It was there when I left hospital, went to rehab center, went to Royal Rehab, and the conversation came up decently quickly. Although, so I had the OT driving test. From memory, it was like literally the day after I left Royal Rehab, although I didn't get car mods in my car for another, like 8 months or so.
Yeah. Okay. So what, like, I mean, it'd be interesting to unpack the process in between. So you said they started talking to you about it. So then what happened? Did you do any lessons, like, or trials, or like how did you end up, I guess, progressing on from the discussion to, having the car?
Discussion of the car. So I do lessons every now and then at Royal Rehab. I think I did about 7 or 8 there because I needed to get 10 lessons before I was able to drive my L's with my parents.
So that just to unpack that a little bit more, you had an OT assessment to start off with, is that right?
Yep.
Yep. And then at the actual hospital that you're at, they actually had a driving instructor come in and visit, did they?
No, so the driving instructor worked for
the hospital,
the rehab center. Yeah.
Yep.
So that was the day after I'd left. Yeah.
Yep.
So they've got their own facilities. Is that what you mean? That rehab center, like their own car and their own driving instructors and things like that.
Yeah. They had everything there.
Yeah. For people listening, in Adelaide, Hampstead have a similar setup, and I think Melbourne has a similar setup as well. I'm not too sure about Queensland, but you're in Sydney.
I think here in Sydney, Royal Rehab, I think they might be the biggest guys around, rehab guys around. So they've got a lot of facilities like that. They've got a lot of in-house kind of stuff like that.
So that was all organised for you. You had you were saying around 7 to 8 lessons before you could go and drive with your folks. But I'm assuming
No. So I had 7 to 8 lessons, and then I got my car mods.
Okay.
So that was a journey in itself. And then I had 2 more lessons with my driving instructor, like those night sessions. And then I was able to drive with my parents.
You said that getting mods was a bit of a journey for you. So let's unpack that then. So where were you going to go with that?
What do you mean by where I was
so you said that was a bit of a journey getting your car mods. Did you want to unpack that journey for us?
I mean, just in terms of just actually getting them on the car.
Yeah.
So I suppose. Biggest thing, I think was the money side of things, and NDIS refusing to pay for them at the time because it was a older car.
We've touched on this story a couple of times in our podcast now. So your car was outside of their guidelines, yeah. So it was. The guidelines have changed recently to the car being 5 years and 80,000 kilometers. If it's newer than that, then it's more likely that modifications are going to be approved for the car. But other clinical justifications have to be there. But yours were outside of the guidelines. Is that right?
Far out. This is a 98.
Yeah.
Model. Yeah.
Yeah. So a much older car.
Sorry, was that your family car, or did you specifically get that for yourself?
Oh no, it was my dad's car, and although funny enough, the NDIS actually did end up reimbursing eventually.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you had to go through some more arguments with them in regards to trying to prove that it was something that you really needed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting space, that one, because we know that 16-year-olds like yourself, or 17 or so forth, at the time, probably not working, being able to afford your own car. We've had a podcast with Jack, and he's been through a similar story as well, trying to get his first car with hand controls. So tune into that episode if you haven't done so already, people. But yeah, when you're on a disability pension as well, and you need a vehicle to be able to house your wheelchair, that's a significant investment. Are you still driving the same car now?
Absolutely, yeah, I am.
Still driving the 98, whatever, Rodeo.
Yeah. I've had thoughts like getting a new one, but my concern is I've got to talk to my support coordinator about that actually getting approved, because I already got the last one approved, and it was an older car. Getting that, it just needs to get transferred over. Although if it's a newer car, it might need to be new hand controls. It will say.
So would you? Yeah. Well, on that note, I guess talking about the product that you use, you said it's a push pull. Or is it a push pull or is it a push pat? Is it the one that you twist down like that?
Nah, push pull.
Push pull.
Ooh,
So
like
you
that,
pull
yeah.
it towards you for
Push.
accelerator.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And how did you, so in terms of using that, I guess coming up with that product and with the OT and everything like that, was when you started doing that, was that the only option available, or was there other options with like the different cars? How did that process work? Did they just come and say, hey, give this hand controller a try, or like, did they do some assessment on you first? How do they do it?
They just said, yeah, give this hand control a try, and basically, yeah, they said it's the most natural feeling of all the combos at the time that they had. But yeah, it sort of just made sense to me. Took a lot of getting used to, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you're using your hands compared to your legs, it would. And then what about, I guess now that you've been out and about using it, and you've probably been within the community in the industry, and I know like you've seen some others even with us here. Do you think that what you've got is the most suitable for you? And if you're going for another car, would you try something else, or do you think you just stick to the same style?
I mean, I haven't tried anything else, if I'm honest. But so what I got does work for me. I have no issue with it. I think,
Okay, cool.
yeah.
Yeah, no, like, I mean, like what I was thinking was like, if you're thinking, oh, well, when I get a new car, are you thinking, hey, I mean, maybe you should go out and try some other hand controls because this one's got a couple of issues, or this one's basically perfect for you, no problems?
Oh, I mean, I'm open to trying new things, of course. I just yeah.
Yeah, it's a really interesting conversation because I've actually got an assessment this afternoon for this exact same scenario. A gentleman upgrading his car, looking to get funding to either move over. Moving over is going to be really difficult for this one because of the way the car's set up with knee airbags and so forth. So we're actually testing out other types, and that allows the driver, so in your case, Matt, to be able to know what's out there and allow people to actually understand that what's out there and what actually might fit better. Because like we've already said with your transfers, your shoulders, we've got that repetitive stress scenario. We've got to look after your shoulders for the next, well, maybe 80 years, and make sure that you can keep using them for as long as possible. So we don't want to not use them and not make them strong. We want to keep the movement, we want to keep them strong and stuff, but we've got to be careful of that repetitive stress, injuries from doing the same thing in the same pattern all the time as well.
So with the, I guess to build on what Brad was saying, you may hit a problem when you go into a newer car if it's got a knee airbag, because one of the traditional push-pull hand controls, because they've got the big sort of rods that go down, they might that's what happens is they might not actually work. They don't work with a lot of cars with knee airbags. A lot of the new knee airbags, because that's what exactly.
We're doing your assessment here for you, Matt. You're getting it free of charge here, mate.
This is good. It's good to hear.
Yeah. So these are just little things that I mean,
I had no idea about this. So thank you, Alex.
Yeah.
And
These little things
far
you learn along the way. When you want to learn it the easy way, not the hard way, by buying the car first and figuring out you can't do it. So I guess around this this sort of assessment process that you went through, and then funding with the NDIS, what are the things that you think that people, I guess, would need to know about? Like what any tips, I guess, that could help people, and things that didn't work out for you that you thought should have been done a different way, and anything around that, like with the OT, with products, the modifiers, even with NDIS, like a lot of people talk about feedback with NDIS.
I mean, NDIS, you just need to push. Otherwise, you're not going to get anywhere. And yeah, I mean, like,
were you on NDIS the whole time? Like, have you been on NDIS like basically since day one?
Yeah.
And have you got other products through them as well for your house and stuff?
Oh, I mean, like standing frame, obviously fund my chair and all sorts of stuff. And, yeah.
So you're fully right into the whole sort of NDIS thing. And so when you said push, did you get like many rejections or anything like that? So for example, with the hand control, situation, you said you sort of went for it anyway. So did they reject you and you went and got it, or did you like you said, well, I want to be driving anyway, or did your family say you want to be driving anyway? How did that work out?
So I went and what's it called? So they reject the what's it called, the quote. So eventually my dad went and got it himself. Then they what's it called? We figured why not push for reimbursement, and then yeah, that it all came through.
Your dad going and getting that done, they were just using their own money?
Yeah.
And so how was your parental support, I guess? How did you feel that was around that time?
I mean, considering what they'd done, it was quite big. It was my 18th birthday present as well. So that was a great present, I think.
Yeah.
And plus I got their money back. So, hey.
What a present.
And they have to pay for it.
Yeah.
Very good.
But
well, there's a tip for all the parents out there.
Give presents and get money back from NDIS.
That's right. I just need to put out there, from my experience, reimbursement's really hard to come by. It's better to have it approved first. There's been quite a lot of stories from our end where reimbursement hasn't happened. They thought they would pay for it up front, and for whatever reason, multiple reasons, the NDIS didn't reimburse and they were caught out of pocket. So please take that as a warning for anybody that is listening to this podcast. Matt's in a bit of a unique scenario there where he actually did get it reimbursed. Be interesting if you've got stories about reimbursement. You can put it in the show notes down below, in the comments down below, if you've got a different experience, if you're listening into this a little bit later down the track. So moving on from here, in regards to the OT assessment and the driving instructing that you did, is there any tips or anything that you could give people that are listening into this podcast in regards to that process? Because I'm sure when you first went through it, it was like you were just being guided, like this is what has to happen next. Is there any tips or advice that you could give to people that have to go through an assessment process? Because that can be quite daunting.
If it's your first time touching your hand controls, watch out, they're sensitive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it took me a while to get used to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably been the biggest thing. Other than that, I mean, yeah, don't stress, they're there to support you.
Yeah. That sounds good.
All right, mate. So we're gonna. Sorry,
I'll just quickly ask the last thing about the driving. So getting back into the driving and driving with your parents. So were they helping a lot as like a learner type of thing, sitting with you?
In terms of helping how, so like.
So like you were saying that you had to do like 7 or 8 lessons first, and then with the rehab guys, then got your car modified. Then you did a couple, and then were the rest just with your parents?
Yeah. So the rest of my hours to do with my parents. They would really, so every time I was driving, they would help me put the chair in the boot. And because it's a ute, right, so it was perfect. And so, yeah, then eventually, like, obviously when I got my P's.
How was it being with them? Like, how your parents, because normally parents in the car can be a bit freaked out, to say the least. Screaming and shouting, going, "Oh, what are you doing, Matt?" So did that go on as well? Was it the standard sort of stuff? Slow down.
Yeah. Initially, yeah, it was very much like that. But I was so eager to drive. But, I don't think I was allowed to. But when I got what's it called? When I got my car mods, I drove home, and yeah, let's just say I wasn't the greatest driver at the time. Not checking when I was moving, like switching lanes and stuff like that, and yeah.
Do you drive much now? Like, do you rely on the car a lot now? Like, do you think it's a very important part of your life?
I'm very blessed. Where I live is like it's right at the metro at Castle Hill, so I have a lot of access to public transport. But I do drive a lot. So I drive every day to the gym. I drive to every school that I workshop at. I drive when I meet up with some of my clients. It's definitely a crucial thing. Well, I said earlier, I don't like driving particularly. I am very grateful for the independence it gives me, because it really, really helps me out in that regard.
Because I know your story as well. You've moved out as well from home and you're living on your own. Is that right?
Yeah, I moved out a year ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think having the car makes it much more possible to be independent, living on your own, away from your parents?
God, yeah. You need it. You need it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it just a couple of other little things that you mentioned in that last little bit? How do you get your wheelchair in and out of the Rodeo? So it's a ute, is it, or is it a wagon?
That's a ute.
So it's a ute. So you got the back tray. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you get your wheelchair in and out?
So I just take it apart from the driver's seat. So once I
Mhm.
transferred in, I obviously cushion goes first, backrest down, lift it up one wheel at a time, and stow it in. If I'm driving with other people, so if I'm, for example, meeting up my girlfriend and I pick her up, I'll make sure so I stack the cushion, the wheels on one another, and the frame all in one side in the back seat. It looks like a passenger in itself. That way, I've got enough room to fit her in and her stuff in the back as well. There are, you got to learn how to play Tetris pretty well at some stage.
Have you ever rocked up at your meeting and got dirty tire marks across you or grease across you in your fancy suit?
Oh god. I've before at school, I'm wearing a nice white top and just the what's it called? The axle.
Yep.
Yep.
The grease axle.
Right
oh god. No.
Yeah. It's happened many times. And sometimes if I'm with main passengers, they'll just do the chair themselves. They have the same issue.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. No, I'm sure your back seat's littered with a little bit of grease here and there, little smudges on there. Don't sit in that seat, mate. Thanks very much for everything that you've unpacked for us through this. We always ask one more question, and I know you've been preparing for this question.
Oh man,
because it gets everyone. So we wind up every podcast with this same question. So you up for it?
I don't know.
Let's see what comes out. So we know that we use cars for things other than getting from A to B. I mean, and you've touched on it a little bit now in regards to the getting you to and from schools and so forth like that. But is there, something that you've done in your car that's a little bit unique, a little bit unusual? Maybe we've had Jack who's told us about games that he's played. We've had Ali talking about towing skiers behind his car. We've had me talking about making out with my wife in the car and getting caught. We use cars for all kinds of things other than just getting from A to B. Is there something that you can think of to share with us about, how you use your car other than just A to B?
I mean, close thing I can relate to that was in terms of making out and things getting a little bit heated with my ex-girlfriend and someone staring at the car because everything was foggy and I mean, like we couldn't really see them, but we saw them stand still and like it looked like they're looking out of the direction, and so we sorted ourselves up and left ASAP. But
we use our cars for all kinds of things, and thanks very much for sharing that with us.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And look, Matt, what you're doing is really awesome, and it's I mean, I've met you in person and worked out with you, and I hope to do it again. And follow you online, and we'll put your links to all your socials and stuff below. I mean, as you've heard a little bit at the beginning, Matt's a pretty amazing guy to listen to, and he's also working with a lot of people within the industry. Like this podcast is targeted probably at people that could most likely reach out to Matt and get some inspiration, because that's the idea. We want people. The idea is people that maybe think that things are not possible. We want them to hear stories like Matt's and go, wait a minute, I can get in the car and I could possibly have some extra independence, and maybe I could even live on my own, and have that independence where a lot of people might not even thought that possible, just by taking that step and going and getting a trial and having a hand control. But it's all to do with that mindset. So, and he's doing coaching as well. with a lot of people with people that are in wheelchairs and things like that. So, he can help you a lot, as he's helped himself, as you can see. So it's really good. So a big plug for that. Check him out.
Yeah, Matt, do you want to, what's the best way that they can get in contact with you?
Yeah, the best way is my website. So just www.mattcaruana.com, MATTCARUANA.com. My Instagram is Matt Shares, and my Facebook is just Matthew Caruana. I have a couple of clients that are in the have disabilities themselves. It's amazing seeing their progress, and I suppose them having their disabilities and their conditions, it does play such a big role on their mental health, on their mindset. They start to really, struggle to get by. But then seeing the progress, like when they implement certain strategies and steps, it's amazing, and nothing excites me more.
Yeah,
that's it, everyone. Check out Matt. Make sure you go and check out his socials and hit him up at his website if you want to know more. Thanks very much. I've so many things that I can take away from this episode. I want to find out more about your story and how you changed your mindset. That's one thing for sure. And I'm really intrigued to know later on, when you do upgrade your car, what kind of changes you have to your modifications. Will you go with the same push-pull, old mechanical style hand controls, or will you adventure into something a little bit newer to maybe match your car, and how you came to that decision? So later on, if you do go through that, would you be happy to join us back again or make some comments to this old podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got a lot of conversations with Ali to be had about this too, because he was the first guy I was going to approach.
Oh, there you go.
I remember you taking me through your workshop the last year. Yeah, it was incredible. And I remember you, straight off the bat, you were showing me things that I'm like, what is this? I've never seen this in my life and never heard anything about them. So I'd be really intrigued to learn more.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
That's how we sign off every podcast, don't we, Ali? So let's sign that off now. As we say in every episode, if you've got any queries about what you can do and what will work for you, get in contact with your local OT and your mobility dealer and set yourself up with a trial. There's so many products out there nowadays. And trials really do put you in the driver's seat. So we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Matt.
Appreciate you guys.
Thanks for listening to the Drive Able podcast with Brad Williams and Ali Akbarian. If you like what you've heard, make sure you like, rate, and subscribe. It really does make a massive difference. If you or anyone you know would like to share a story about driving with a disability, or you would like to get in contact, find the show notes, or find the resources mentioned in this episode, you can find us on Facebook. Just search @Drive Able Podcast for more information.